So today's video is going to be on the best eyeshadow brushes for beginners. So I have 4 different types of brushes that I would recommend. So if you're interested, let's get into it. Alright, so there's 4 types of brushes that I'm going to be covering in this video. For me, those are the 4 most important eyeshadow brushes. And you always want to use brushes based on the shape of your eyes. Trust me, that will be a game changer for your eyeshadow. So first, we're going to talk about a blending crease brush. So a blending crease brush is usually a small tapered eyeshadow brush. A tapered brush just means that it's flat on the sides, and as it gets to the top, it becomes sharp, so it's really shaped like this. Tapered brushes are usually good for picking up powder, such as like the crease shade. When you're applying your eyeshadow, a crease shade is the first eyeshadow shade that is commonly used, so you want to make sure that you have a good blending brush for that. And you also don't want to use a dense brush, because dense brushes don't blend eyeshadow really well. So if you're gonna go for a blending brush, make sure that the brush is very nice and fluffy and it's a tapered brush. There are many different types of crease brushes, so you want to make sure that you're getting one that fits the shape of your eye. The Morphe M506 brush is a good one for smaller eyelids, and the Morphe M441 brush is good for medium-sized eyelids. And then I like the e.l.f. Fluffy Blender brush for bigger eyelids. I would recommend getting 2 or 3 of these brushes, just because sometimes you go in with more than one crease color. Sometimes you apply a lighter one, then you go in with a darker one. So you want at least like 2 to 3 of these brushes, just so that you're not using dirty brushes when doing your eyeshadow, because that could mess up your eyeshadow look. And because I have smaller eyelids, I like to use the M506 brush by Morphe because it fits the shape of my eyes. So with this type of brush, I like to pick up some of that pigment, and what I do is I pack it on there. I like to start off by packing the eyeshadow, because when you pack the eyeshadow, it comes out a little bit more pigmented than if you just start sweeping it onto your crease. So I like to just start off by packing it first and then blending it out. Like I mentioned, this type of brush is good for packing because it picks up a lot of the pigment. Fluffy brushes usually pick up powder really nicely, better than brushes that are flat. And as you guys can see, I'm using 2 of the same types of brushes to apply 2 different crease colors onto my eyelids. And this is what gives you a nice clean eyeshadow look, is when you switch with clean brushes each time, because it gives you a nice blended look. So I'm going to go back in with that first shade and the same type of blending brush, and I just use that to blend out those 2 colors so that they really come put together and you don't really see any lines around each shade. Alright, so the next type of brush is a flat eyelid brush. So flat eyelid brushes are usually used to place the eyelid shade. Eyelid shades can be shimmer, metallics, or glitters, and they can also be placed on your eyelids. I like using flat brushes for the eyelids because they're very precise. So you don't want to use a blending brush to apply a shimmer eyeshadow on your eyelid, because the shimmer eyeshadow will go all over, like it will get everywhere on your eyes. So my favorite brush for the eyelid is the Morphe M124 brush. This one is a good one for smaller eyelids, and the Morphe M224 brush is good for bigger eyelids. So these flat eyelid brushes are also good for cut creases. You can use them to cut the crease. So when I'm placing this eyelid shade, I just like to swipe it on my eyelids, and as you can see, the pigment is really nice because it picks up the shimmer eyeshadow and really just places it on your eyelids. You don't get as much fallout down here, especially if you dust off the excess off the brush. That pigment really just falls out, and whatever's left on the brush just goes nicely on your eyelids. And I like to just go back in with that dark brown shade and the blending brush, which is the first brush we use, and I just go back and blend those 2 shades together. So remember, this is a blending brush, so you're using it to blend eyeshadow shades together. Alright, so the next type of brush is a smudge brush. A smudge brush is used to place eyeshadow under your eyes, so you just smudge it under your eyes to make it look nice and smoky. Sometimes I like to leave my under eyes with just mascara, but if you really want to tie in together and close your eyes, you want to smudge some type of eyeshadow under your eyes. So a smudge brush should be very small. It should have like a lay down angle, because you want the application to be very precise under your eyes. So I wouldn't go in with a huge smudge brush under the eyes, because that can get the eyeshadow to be everywhere, which you don't want. You want it to be nice and precise and smoked out. So for smaller eyelids, I really like the Morphe 213 brush. This one is very small, and this is the one that I use. If you have bigger eyelids, I would say get the Morphe M508 brush. It's kind of big, so it's better for people with bigger eyelids. So with this brush, I like to just take some of that first eyeshadow that I placed on my crease area. You want to make sure to dust off the excess so that the powder does not fall under your eyes and mess up your makeup. So I just like to smudge that right under my eyes, making sure not to place it inside the eyes. You have to be very careful. So I like to bring it all the way in, and then I like to go in with that brown eyeshadow shade that I placed on my crease to darken up that eyeshadow look. And with that shade, I like focusing it only on the outer portion, so I just smudge that right underneath, and I like to bring it up where the eyeliner is. And this brush, you can also use it to smudge eyeliner. So if you want to do like a really nice wing, you can use this brush to draw out and smudge out that wing. Alright, lastly, we have a rounded inner corner brush. It's one that you use to place your inner corner shade. For this part, I like using a rounded brush because your tear duct is rounded. So if you have an area on your eyes that has the kind of like a ball type of look, you want to use a rounded brush on that area because it really helps to hug that round part and blend the eyeshadow all over. For this, I have two main brushes that I use. I use the Morphe M431 brush. I like this if you want to add a little bit of a pop, you don't want to add too much. And then I like the Morphe E36 brush when you want to add a lot more, because this one is more densely packed than the M431 brush. So for the inner corner shade, I usually pick up a shade that is lighter than the eyelid shade, but I don't pick up one that is way too light, like a white color. So I like to just place that right where the tear duct is. And in a circular motion, I just like to apply that shade. And then whatever's left on the brush, I like to blend it with the eyelid shade so that you don't see any harshness and those two colors transition really nicely together. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also check out my next video over here. So this video is part 1 of this video where I talk about eyeshadow tutorial for beginners. But other than that, I will see you guys in my next video.